Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Welcome back. I'm Ben Canning.
And I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is another episode of Hacking Your Health podcast.
Oh, this is another episode into that. That's new.
Yeah, well, it is another episode.
It is. It's just even a little bit different today.
Yeah, I feel like I have to change it every time because people expect the yo, and then I think that what follows on from that can always be different.
Yeah, I agree. Good job. Good intro.
And it's also a different day. It's a different day that we're recording on, so I'm a bit all over the place. So I think that has thrown me off.
Dude, I talked to somebody today. I'm like, hey, it's Friday. Happy Friday. And they're like, no, it's Thursday. I'm like, oh. Yeah, I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Right. Well, apart from having no idea what's going on, how are you? What's been up with you?
Listen, I'll tell you, busy. It's been definitely the busiest 2 weeks I think I've had in a very long time. Just with everything going on with Ukraine and, companies freaking out about, hey, are we going to be targeted? What can we do to better prepare ourselves? And, being on the news all the time and everything. And then on top of that, I took up, I couldn't get enough coaching with my sixth grade kids. So I started an AAU team in the off season. So now I'm coaching like hardcore and, in the off season. I got a great team of kids, same kids from my previous team. So we're just kind of moving on and doing different things. So it's just like, every aspect of my time has been consumed. In fact, if you're watching the YouTube stream, I apologize if my hair is all jacked up and I'm all sweaty and oily. I haven't showered since yesterday morning, so I need to get a shower in. As soon as I get done here, I'm going for a shower. And I worked out three times since then, so I don't.
It's just as well you have your own gym.
Yeah. It's first you have your own gym. If you stink, it doesn't matter. But luckily, Aaron hasn't said anything, about it. But. No, but things have been going good. Just busy getting my workouts in. Yesterday's a great story where I was so busy all day, like I couldn't even think about working out. I just didn't have time. I got Orange Theory first thing in the morning, and then literally my day was just a disaster, just meeting after business thing after driving here, driving there, and I couldn't get my workout in. And I got home at 9 o'clock. It was 9:30 last night, and I get down and I'm like, oh, man, it's like I personally hate working out at night. I don't know how anybody works out at night. It just sucks. Like you're ready, and there's some science behind this too. Like people that can work out by the way at night, more power to you. Keep doing it. For me, I just can't do it. And there's some science behind it too, like around how your body's kind of unwinding and moving downward and starting to get prepared for sleep and stuff like that. And then you kind of do your workout and you're like, I'm all wired now again. But I went downstairs and got a fantastic leg workout. Completely destroyed myself. Did PR'd and got a whole new set of volume, which is awesome. And it wasn't just a little bit; it was like 15,000 new pounds of volume on my legs, which I don't even know how it's possible. But I was definitely dreading going upstairs last night. And then this morning, did the exact same thing. Hit the ground running first thing this morning with an upper day, and did awesome. So things have been going really good. Training's been going great. Strength is increasing and improving. Really can't complain at all, man. Things have been good. But how about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm laughing at. I'm actually sweaty too. So I've just come back. I was training legs for YouTube with Helmy, so you can imagine the absolute shit show that
he's still alive.
I know. I can actually feel my hamstrings. Like it's as if they're just you're holding one end and I'm holding the other end. Like they're just barely staying together. But no, it was good fun. He's 4 weeks and 3 days out from his show, so things are getting quite serious on his end. So it's interesting to sort of see that process and what that actually looks like. And it's funny because we had a conversation of, you expect to really be suffering at that stage, but the way that he sort of managed things, and because he does this, so long term, it's not as bad as he imagined it was going to be. It could be in the next few weeks, but so far he's still got his head screwed on and remembers his name. So we're so far so good. But other than that, everything's good.
First, we have to say Helmy's a big boy.
Helmy is a big boy, yeah. He is a big fucking boy. Big, strong boy, yeah. But no, training was good fun. I hadn't really trained at that intensity in a long time. There's always more intensity whenever I'm training with him, and especially whenever there's a guy with a camera in your face, because I'm like, shit, I need to actually look like I'm training hard here. So yeah, that was good fun. Apart from that, everything's going well. Work's good. As you know, I've introduced a couple of new people into the BC family, which has been good. People from lots of different places, Spain, Japan, other people in America, Canada. So It's been interesting talking to different people in different places. But yeah, other than that, everything's good on my end.
That's great. I actually got a question about the training with Helmy. So, if he's preparing for a competition in like 3 or 4 weeks, like what's his day look like as far as, is he like on a deficit where he's just trying to cut up so that he's...
So what does his day look like? His morning routine lasts about an hour and a half from what he told me this morning. So like get up, has to do some posing so that he's, constantly going through the different movements and whatever else. And then his supplements, gets his food ready for the day, goes out and does like a 20-minute walk, then obviously does work and whatever else, has his sessions, four sessions across the week. And then obviously his food is regimented. I think last week was the first time his food had been reduced. So when we say a deficit, I think he's still eating like 4,000 calories, but that's obviously a deficit from him, which is actually interesting in terms of the topic that we want to discuss today. But I guess actually a funny point to note, as I said about the suffering, we sort of had this conversation at the end of the session, and he was doing some posing, and he was like, I feel like I need to be a lot leaner. And I think in both of our heads, we are trying to imagine what it's going to be like for him when he's on stage, or what the category is. So he's doing heavyweight bodybuilder. So to me, I think of like heavyweight bodybuilders of like, not maybe to that level, but the guys who are on the Olympic stage, like they're really fucking big boys who aren't actually super, super, super lean. So there's a difference between being like stage lean and being like absolutely shredded. And I think different categories host different things. So I think he's a little bit like, I don't feel like I should feel like this. Like, it's not that difficult. Like, he says, I've got a bit too much body fat, and he's like pinching the smallest amount of body fat. Like, I think you're all going to be okay. yeah, exactly. But I think the thing that we sort of came was like, I think for that heavyweight bodybuilding, the upper weight limit it's 102 kilos, so whatever that is in pounds. So you want to be at that upper range. So it's about fullness and it's about muscle density. It's not necessarily about being absolutely inside out shredded. So I think that's sort of playing on his mind a little bit, because he's used to anything that he's done before is just, I need to get as lean and as conditioned as possible. So yeah,
how much does Helmy weigh overall?
He is 103 kilos this morning. So whatever that is in pounds, it's like 103 times 226.6 kilo or pounds.
And how tall is he?
5'10", I'm gonna say. Okay. 5'11", maybe.
Gotcha. So he's a bit a smaller size, like as far as height.
Yes, but he's a big fucking boy.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to sort of see. And as I said, we've got about four and a bit weeks. And I think the coach that he's working with on that, it's their first time working together. So there's a bit of like him getting to know him and him getting to know his process. And like, some coaches will get you ready 6 weeks out and then basically want you to stay lean but grow into the show. Some coaches will plan it literally the day that you need to be ready on that day, and that's all that matters. So it'll be interesting couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, let me know how it goes, and maybe we can talk about it on the podcast how his show went, because I was curious about that. Like, how,
we can get him on. He is a fucking interesting character, and you'll have an interesting conversation with him. Like, we can definitely get him on.
We should get him on. I think that'd be awesome.
Okay, I'll set that up. It's so funny.
He's got a thick accent, doesn't he? I think I remember from his videos. He's got like a thick, like Irish or Scottish accent or something.
No, but he's from Belfast. Like, he's got a Belfast accent. Okay, but yeah, he's it'll be funny. Yeah, we'll get him on.
Sorry if I insulted you or him. Or
no, not me. No.
I thought he had a pretty thick accent. Like, you can understand.
I'm not telling.
Yeah.
I'm not telling.
I don't want to make him beat me up.
But yeah, we'll get him on. We should maybe get him on. I guess we get him on after the show, so that he can
talk about how he prepares for that, and like his routines, and obviously being that big, he's got such a volume of muscle mass that he needs the calories obviously to maintain or to grow. And just curious how he balances that, and how he, like I always, what's great about having you is I have a good baseline of where I should be at from a calorie perspective, but it's always like that how do you know as you grow where your calories need to be at, and those types of things. And I think it's a good discussion, obviously, today, what we're going to be talking about when calories in versus calories out don't work. And, we've talked about this before on a lot of podcasts, and I don't want to get to you because I want to talk about multivitamins in a second. But it's interesting to note, like, calories in versus calories out is true 100% from a thermodynamics perspective or thermogenics perspective, but it's not always true. And we'll get into that today about when calories in versus calories out don't work. And I think there's a lot of good nuances about that and understanding that as we're trying to go through and track and lose weight and everything else. But to get into the topic of multivitamins, so I got into a bit of a tiff or argument. Someone might have gotten the ban hammer on Discord, but got a little too saucy. But it was actually an interesting conversation because, it was a different perspective. And I always welcome different perspectives, 100%. In fact, I like being challenged. I like being educated in being challenged and understanding other people's views and perspectives. Because I think, when you have a common dialogue with somebody that disagrees with you, your understanding of a topic becomes much greater. And I think that's something we've obviously lost as a society because of social media and everything else. And it's a great, a great point, because the conversation started off more in education, but as soon as I started disagreeing with this individual, he became extremely hostile and toxic, right? And that's exactly what happens in our society today. And again, I try to be more patient and to, say, hey, I'm not trying to say you're wrong in any way. I'm just trying to understand, like where you're coming from. And I think there's a good balance, and it's really up to the individual and the person. And my situation is very different than anybody else. And, it was very much a hard line to stand. No, if you take multivitamins, you're the devil, and I was like, okay, well, that's a bit extreme. Let's talk more about why that is and why you think that. And, I referenced a couple scientific studies, and, it was immediately met with discrediting, my point of view, saying, oh, those medical studies, it's from the same people that made the, food charts, and they're all wrong and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, if we're not going to have a rational discussion with science and, like science-based facts and understanding what's going on, if you're going to use some bro science stuff, that you think is important, I can't have a discussion with you. And then it started getting more, and I ended up banning them. But ultimately, I hold the hammer, so it's good. But I do want to talk about multivitamins because it is such a interesting debate. So something like 51% of the United States population uses a multivitamin. And the research is very mixed on multivitamins in general from a supplementation perspective of whether or not they provide a benefit or they don't. And, obviously the rationality and thought pattern is that, if we're not getting the nutrients that we need to from our diets, our food-based diets, supplementing with nutrients that can provide our body with everything that it needs is probably beneficial. And most people don't have a phenomenal diet. So multivitamins to me make sense for folks that don't have a phenomenal diet. But also there was a research out of NIH back in 2006 that showed that people that go through extensive amounts of either resistance training, cardio, or any type of athletic activity that puts a strain on your body, even through whole food diet food intake, did not regenerate or replenish all the micronutrients needed for your body. So it leads you to believe that, hey, listen, supplements may be beneficial for you. Now, the supplements that are out there today are, you got to be really careful because they could be way overboard on what you need from a vitamins and minerals perspective. You need to be very careful around what you're doing as far as, loading in certain types of vitamins and things to that effect. But at the end of the day, there was also an additional study back in 2017 that showed that, supplements did not hurt you. But it also didn't seem to have a major impact on cardiovascular health, like heart attack, things like that, strokes, but may help in the long term around your longevity of health and things to that effect. So it's still an open air discussion. A lot of doctors and scientists and things to that effect are kind of split in this community. A lot of them are very pro vitamins. A lot of them are not. So it's up to you, I think, to make a determination on whether or not multivitamins are part of your regular routine. But one thing that I want to emphasize is that, we're not advocating, hey, you need to take a bunch of supplements, to be, living a healthy lifestyle. If you're doing a great whole foods, type of nutrient rich type of diet, that's fantastic. Good on you. And you can probably get most of your micronutrients directly from that. what I would say is think about doing some micronutrient testing in your life. I get mine done every 6 months, and to see where I might be deficient at from a micronutrient perspective, but at least start to understand, hey, what does your body need? What are you deficient in? What are you not getting through your normal, day-to-day activities, and then supplement as necessary based off of that. To me, a multivitamin is necessary also because of my health issues that I have. I have issues with absorbing iron. I have issues with absorbing B12. I have issues with vitamin D, as pretty much everybody in the world does, especially in the Western countries. So, those are small things that you can incorporate into your plan to help supplement what your body needs in order to be in a normal range of vitamins for yourself. So that's my one thing. Pass it over to you, Ben, for any comments you have on that.
First of all, fuck that guy. I think that, as you said, I'm always open to perspectives, listening to other people's opinions, and having a conversation about it. I'm not the person that's going to say, no, you're wrong, or I'm right, and this is the only way. But I think that needs to be, mirrored on the other side, that, okay, look, you're entitled to your opinion and that's it. It's fine. It's not like, no, this is the way and that is it. So yeah, fuck that guy.
The thing that bothered me with the whole situation is he said multiple times, you're being reckless by recommending multivitamins. I'm like, how am I being reckless by recommending? First of all, I'm not even recommending multivitamins. I use multivitamins. Here's what I use. I'm not saying you should go and do it. I'm just saying, for me, the three staples of what I would consider things that I want to add would be, or I guess 4 staples would be a multivitamin, omega-3s, fish oils, fatty acids, creatine, and protein. Like that, protein shakes. Like those are the 4 things that I would recommend somebody probably do. But again, that's me. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I read a lot of research. But at the end of the day, that's for me. How am I being reckless with that? It's so stupid. So stupid.
Well, yes, I think exactly. Well, first of all, I would like to say anything that we say on this, it's obviously from personal experience, and I'm not saying that you have to take this and you have to take that. And anybody who's had any capacity of conversation with me in a coaching perspective or even on a call or whatever, I never recommend supplements straight off the bat. In fact, I'm almost anti doing that because I think that there's so many more things that we can do and take care of before we actually even need to look at that, if we need to look at it at all. And I think exactly what you said, you need to look at it. It depends how much you want to get into it. But if you look at it from a hormonal perspective or like you said about, nutrient testing and whatever else, then you can literally see in front of you in black and white what you're deficient in. And okay, yes, a multivitamin is probably blanket and quite generic, and yes, you can take it and get whatever you need from it or whatever. Or you can go down the route of actually go, okay, right, I'm deficient in this, and this. I need a bit more specific in it. I can get them from this sort of different places, and I'll make it up myself. So I think you just need to sort of know where you're at with it and make your own decision. But again, I'm not here recommending this or that. Do I take one myself? Yes. Do I eat majority whole foods? Yes. Do I get a lot of nutrients and micronutrients? Yes. Am I going to take something that potentially will make it 1% better? Fucking absolutely right I am, because that's ultimately what we're here for and what it's about. But yeah, so that's, people are funny, but yeah, that's my stance on it too. I think it comes down to understanding yourself and your body, and it's not like, to call it the devil is hilarious, and the people who push them are also the devil. And it's like, okay, right, well, you're not willing to have an actual adult conversation here, so yeah.
Well, that's the word of advice for today is that if you're having a heated discussion on something that you impassionately believe in, to the core and to the T, someone also probably passionately believes in a certain situation, and by completely dismissing and shutting down that conversation just makes you look like an idiot. It's not going to change that person's perspective. It's not going to change anybody else's perspective. It's going to make you look like an idiot. So be more respectful of one another, talk to one another, understand one another's perspectives. You know what? Some things will change. And honestly, after I started getting the reckless comments and all this other stuff, I just stopped paying attention to what he had to say, because it wasn't a discussion at that point. It wasn't, hey, where am I not understanding? Where am I not understanding the science or the data or, new things that are coming out that I haven't seen before, or your perspectives of things? Instead, it was just, a complete dismissal, and that's not a way to have a conversation. So, but I think you've run into that a lot, in this industry, around the fitness industry, where you have a lot of folks that, are on keto, for example, and it's only keto. That's all you can do, right? or it's this or that or this, or you have to do, really low reps in order to build your strength up, or you have to do super high reps in order to grow muscles, or you have to do this or that. And it's this empirical belief system that, like, if this works for me, it has to be the right way, and there's no other way to think about it. And I think there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. And, it's just, again, understanding other people's perspectives, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and I think exactly what you said there is you need to understand it for yourself. And this is exactly why I wanted to have this discussion today. And I think, again, anybody who's ever spoken to me, I always say to them, I was like, look, I realize that the internet is a total shit show, because you can read back-to-back things that will literally contradict each other. And 1 minute you need to do this, and then the next article saying, no, that's the wrong thing to do, and whatever else. And the thing about it is, to an extent, they're all right and they're all wrong, because for some people, X, Y, and Z will work, and for others, it'll be a total shit show and it won't work. And I think that's where you need to sort of carve your own path and think, right, okay, well, I'm going to take bits from that and bits from this and create something that works well for me. And I think, even if we've spoken about before, like the term intermittent fasting, while there is a whole cult behind it, I do definitely think there is a lot of benefits to, pushing back your breakfast or windowed eating or extended fasts. I'm not here trying to sell you an intermittent fasting program, but I definitely think that there are elements that we can take from it. So I think having that open mind and being able to have a discussion with someone, but also having the common sense to go, okay, right, this sort of works for me, but I don't like the way that is. So I can take this element and sort of create something that actually works for me. And that ultimately is, number one, why I want to have this conversation. And number two, what I try and do and give to every client that I work with.
Yeah. Getting into the topic of like what works for you, what works for somebody else, we're all different, right? We all have different genetics. We have different lifestyles. We have different food. We have different, access to different things based on, where we live or jobs or things of that effect. So, building something, and this is where I really get down to you have to have an understanding around how your body works before you really make a plunge into coming up with a successful plan, right? Because if you don't understand your body, your routine, your schedule, how you react to certain things, it's not going to be a successful journey for you in most cases, because, I really think it's one of those pieces where, everybody's different. And a good example, yesterday, I was talking about my macronutrient breakdown, and yesterday I think I had something like, it was like 86 grams of carbs and 86 grams of protein happened to match up exactly, which is crazy. And then, it was like 11 grams of fat, right? And it was like a combination of oatmeal, Greek yogurts, and protein shakes. It was my kind of like my after Orange Theory workout to replenish my glycogen stores and also get protein in for the morning for protein synthesis. And Yuri had mentioned, and Yuri's awesome, by the way. I always like seeing his post. That guy is so jacked. He's like 45 or something like that. And he's like, I want to be just like him. When I grow up.
Yeah, when I grow up, I want to be like Yuri.
Yeah. I would be like, I'm gonna get a tattoo being like Yuri. But Yuri's like, he's like, I'm glad that works for you. He's like, I found that I have to have a little more fat in my diet, in order for me to be able to feel good and not pack on a bunch of pounds through carbs. So, our bodies react very differently to carbs versus fats versus proteins. And to say that, hey, if you cut out all fats and you just run protein and carbs may work for one person, but you may need to be more fat centric in your diet based on how your body operates and works and your metabolism and everything else. So, it's this constant like trying to fine tune and make things better. I think that becomes important to understand how your body actually operates and works.
Yeah, I fully agree. And, I'm the opposite of that. And I think I've mentioned this before. Like, I know that my body responds well to higher carbs. And there have been times in the past that I have eaten as many as 800, 900, potentially 1,000 grams of carbs per day, because I know how well my body responds to them. I need to keep fats low because my body just prefers it. I can stay a lot leaner. Not that it's in any way and nothing against fats at all, but just my body prefers to be that way. And I think this is exactly a point that I want to sort of bring up. And it's, for me, this conversation around calories in versus calories out, the caveat to this is that, yes, it makes sense. The science makes sense. Yes, it will work for the majority of people. Absolutely, no doubt. But I want to have this conversation because it doesn't work for anybody. And I know that there will be a lot of frustrations and people being like, oh, well, I've worked this out and I have this and this is what I'm doing, but it's just not working for me. And I want people to know that it's not that they're the issue. It's they just need to go a little bit deeper and actually work out what's going on. And it's not that, you know, potentially it just doesn't work for them. And I think for me, and again, I've said this before, like I've spent so long tracking food and tracking data and tracking information that I have a pretty good sense of exactly what I need and when I need it. I don't want to say that it's intuitive eating, and I know that's a whole other rabbit hole that we can go down one day, but it's probably as close to it as possible because, okay, yes, I potentially don't track my food for a while, but 9 plates out of 10, I'll be able to give you a pretty decent, accurate breakdown of what the food looks like in terms of calories, protein, fats, and carbs, and whatever else, because I put the time in to actually understand it and actually, you know, learn and you guys put the hours in with it. And I think that's one point that I wanted to note, that although people don't like counting calories and they don't like tracking their food for whatever reason, the first thing I'll say is it doesn't need to be something that you do forever, but it definitely needs to be something you do for some period of time, because it gives you an understanding of how food's made up, how, you know, it's broken down, you know, the different, you know, calorie amounts, you know, portion sizes are a total shit show depending on where you are in the world. Like nobody really has an understanding of what a portion is, and have an understanding of like what your body needs versus what you're actually consuming. So it doesn't need to be a forever thing, but it definitely needs to be at some stage thing. But again, it just comes down to time, understanding what you need, putting the hours in and actually learning. And as you said, refining it towards yourself, as you and I have done, you know, in the past, I think we're coming up to 18 months now. So I think, you know, it literally just takes time to do it.
Yeah,
so
the thing for let's do it.
Right. So calories in versus calories out. Do you want to? I'll let you cover the calories in versus calories out because you mention it quite a lot, and then I'm going to give you the what I have here. So we talk about calories in versus calories out. Over to you.
All right. So, you know, we've done a lot of previous podcasts on this specific topic, and it's an important one. It's actually probably one of the most fundamental important ones for you to understand about nutrition and how to lose or gain weight. Your body works very similarly by the amount of energy you consume, the amount of energy you burn, the amount of calories that you need in order to either replenish that and to be in what we either call a surplus or a deficit. Surplus being we eat more calories than we actually generate or consume, versus caloric deficit, which is we are having to go to fat stores and things like that to get additional calories for our bodies because we're not eating enough calories for our body to be able to consume. That's obviously how you lose weight. So, you know, the big, you know, simplification of this is that if you eat less food than your body consumes, then you will lose weight. If you eat more calories than your body consumes, you will be in a surplus and you will gain weight. And that's basically the ins and outs of, you know, the thermogenics of your body, and how that actually operates. So again, it's all energy production in your body, what your body uses in order to replenish that energy. And ultimately, your fat stores are what is used in order to use additional energy in the event that you need it. And there's like a two-pronged system that happens, and I'm not going to get into the specifics of this. It's been a while since I've researched that piece. But basically, in order for your body to use fat as an energy source, one, it has to basically allocate the fat to be used, and it also has to transport that fat for energy use. So there's like two kind of systems that have to work there. So it's like, hey, I'm getting you ready to be used. And then, okay, now I actually need to use you. So in order for that to accomplish it, there's a lot of different ins and outs that happen there. But for the simplistic, you know, sense of everything, it's really, hey, if my body burns 2,000 calories a day and I eat 1,500 calories, I will be in a 500 calorie deficit. And ultimately that adds up over time to where your body will continuously eat away at fat, your fat stores reserves, in order to replenish that. So calories in versus calories out. That's what we call total daily energy expenditure.
Yeah. And it does, you know, it does work, and I'm not against it. And, you know, it will work for the majority of people. And obviously there are calculators, and we've, you know, if you're tracking and managing everything properly, then yes, it will work, and that's absolutely fine. But there will come a point that, I guess the best way to put it is it works until it doesn't work. So whether that is with an individual, if it works for them for a while, then it stops working, or whether it's just with an individual that it doesn't work for at all. And there's there's a lot of points that I want to talk about, but there's two main points that I want to talk about whenever we're talking about calories themselves. So calories in versus calories out is fine. But whenever we talk about calories, the first thing that we want to talk about is obviously the quantity of them is the amount of calories you're putting in, but the quality of the calories matters as well. So, obviously there was a big if it fits your macros movement where everybody was eating Pop-Tarts for breakfast and Skittles as post-workout, and it was fine. But the issue that then came from that was obviously the quality of the food, because people were told, well, I can just fucking eat whatever I want as long as it fits within my macros. So you were creating these weird meals and whatever, sort of came along with it. And there was no real solid guidelines in terms of what that should actually look like. Now, a caveat to that is, and you'll know this yourself, like whenever I'm programming and I give you your calorie breakdown, I will always say have 80% whole foods, nutrient dense, single source foods, things that have been either alive at some point or grown on the ground, whatever it is. And then 20% you have the freedom to do whatever the fuck you want with, because I think that is another important thing to have. Now, that 20% can be used in whatever way that you want. Processed foods, wheat thins or Cheez-Its or whatever the fuck you're eating. And
yep.
I think that they're important to have.
Both.
Both 20%. But the point that I want to make with that is, so whenever you're talking about thermodynamic effect of food and thermogenesis, your body processes food differently. So fats, if we talk about fats, carbs, and protein, it's about 0.5% of your calories consumed from fats are burned during digestion. For carbs, it's between 5 and 15%, and for proteins, it's between 20 and 30%, and the same for fiber. So you'll understand why I always make an importance of protein, because it's the highest thermodynamic effect. So, example straight off the top of my head, if you eat 100 calories worth of protein, it's going to take between 20 and 30 calories of that protein source to actually digest it. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
So there's a lot of studies in line with processed foods, and the general consensus on it is that you lose up to about 50% of that thermodynamic effect of food if the food has been processed, because obviously it's already been broken down in some way, shape or form. So one point that I wanted to note on that is the quality of the calories matters more, if not as much, as the quantity of them.
That makes a lot of sense, and what's kind of interesting too, when I'm looking for a snack, right? If I let's just say it's in between meals and I'm looking for a snack, right? What will definitely not fill me up is going for like a bag of chips or a bar of something, even though Anna bars are delicious.
They are. I cannot agree that they are delicious.
But when you're eating something like whole foods, like chicken or rice or steak or veggies or whatever it ends up being, those are much more fulfilling, both from a micro and macronutrient perspective, but also, what your body's doing to break those down, because they are, whole foods that your body has to break down, and you hit those thermogenic effects of those foods themselves versus, processed foods. It's actually rare for me. The only thing that, again, I snack on from a processed food perspective typically are pretzels. I like salty pretzels. I like, obviously, wheat thins and Cheez-Its, right? And, but here's the thing. I have to be really, really careful when I'm eating wheat thins or Cheez-Its, because I can eat a whole box without even paying attention, right? And, and you're still not full. So, they really don't have a massive intake around how you feel from a digestion perspective of having that full feel, unless you polish off an entire box of those. So I actually have to what I'll do now, if I'm doing wheat, first of all, I don't have them in my house anymore, but if I did, I would have, I would get myself a bowl, and I would actually count out how many wheat thins I'm going to eat. And then I put the box away, and then I go downstairs with those wheat thins, and that's all I have to ration. So I'll just snack on them, through an hour of 2-hour periods. Just because otherwise I would just keep eating the box and keep eating the box, and I just wouldn't pay attention. And so, I think it's important to note that, as you're eating things, try to go more towards whole foods. Fruits are great. You obviously need to be careful on fruits too. You don't want to eat a mass ton of those, as you're going through. It's a lot of sugar, but it's still great for you from a whole food perspective. A lot of great micronutrients from that as well. Things that you could do to kind of fill you up. When I'm trying to go for snacks, I like oatmeal and I like Greek yogurt. Those are like my two snacking foods that I typically use as I'm going through and trying to get either carbs or protein. Cottage cheese is also really good.
a quick sort of side note on what you're talking about there. I think there is, and I'm not against it in any way, shape, or form, so hear me out. I think there is a big sort of culture of like a snacking culture that you have, 3 meals and 2 snacks or whatever else. And I would, to an extent, recommend that sometimes. And you're talking about being hungry, and I think that there's always a big piece of the puzzle that's missing whenever it comes to being hungry. And I think I've mentioned this before, the difference, and I have to credit Matt for this, the difference between psychologically and physiologically hungry. So for example, if we go back to the conversation about intermittent fasting or windowed eating, if you have spent your whole life eating breakfast at 7 a.m. every single morning, and then you decide that you're going to push that back to 11 because that's whenever you're going to start your eating window, you're going to be hungry. Your body's going to tell you that you're hungry at 7 a.m. because it's used to getting that meal. So it's psychological hunger that you think, oh shit, right, I'm actually hungry. And I can relate this back to myself whenever I used to do the extended fasts. The majority of the day I was fine. So I would have done a 36-hour fast, finished my dinner on a Tuesday evening. Wednesday morning, I would have been okay. Wednesday, like lunchtime, I would have been hungry. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, I'm not going to make it. But that wave would have passed. The time would have passed. It would have been a psychological hunger. Then dinner time would have came around, the same thing. I totally fucked it picking that day, by the way, as a sort of side note, because Wednesday would have always been the day that I did my meal prep for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So you can imagine I hadn't eaten in 24 hours. I couldn't eat until the next morning because I wanted to do the fast, and I'm prepping my food for the next day. So I'm literally cooking food. But anyway, so there's a difference between being psychologically and physiologically hungry. Physiologically hungry is obviously whenever you feel it and your body's craving the calories, you need it. So recognizing those two things, I think, is important. The other thing to recognize is in a fat loss phase, if the goal is fat loss, then being a little bit hungry is a good thing. Your body feeling hunger is basically what fat loss should be. It's fat oxidation. So calories in versus calories out will be weight loss. Fat oxidation is what comes from being hungry. So that's the feeling that you get. So if you are like, oh my God, I'm hungry, I need to get a snack, just, I don't want to say have a glass of water as a snack, but have a glass of water and think, right, am I actually hungry, or do I just need something to fill me up? And try and push that back a little bit, because if you can extend that window, then you can get a little bit more from your fat loss attempts. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. I was going on really good there too. I don't think I can repeat what I just said. I was just so brilliant. There's actually a lot of good studies on the feeling of hunger as being a good thing. Your body actually starts to clean up excess toxins, cleans up your body, repairs itself better. And we become obviously a society that is never hungry. Food is plentiful, there for us all the time. So, having that feeling of hunger is a good thing. And actually someone was in the Discord channel, it was just a couple of days ago, saying, hey, at night, do you all just get like a super massive like crave for carbs that you just want to eat a bunch of stuff at night? And the truth of the matter is, yeah, I get hungry at night. When I haven't eaten, I try to take, we talked about intermittent fasting or feeding windows. I try to stop eating around 8 o'clock and don't eat again until 10 a.m. It's kind of my little window of not eating. So if I, stop, let's just say at 7, 7:30 or 8, by 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm starting to feel pretty hungry, right? And the next morning, interesting enough, what's interesting about that is I think once you get under the initial hump of being hungry, and this is true when we used to do the 24-hour fasting, which, I made the mistake of doing a 24-hour fast when I did cardio, which is like the worst idea ever. I would literally never eat anything. But it's one of those things where I think, you look at the hunger, it quickly subsides if you get over the initial hump. Let's just say it's the first half hour, right? But it's our stimulus that gets us. It's like, oh, I'm hungry. I need to go get food. Oh, I'm hungry. I need to eat this. I think it'll do you really good if you just, hey, go get a big glass of water, use that, as a mechanism, and then, wait a little bit and see if you're still hungry and if your body actually needs it or not. Because most times it's just your emotional aspect of things telling you that you need to eat versus, actually needing something to eat.
Yeah, well, I think, obviously we're going to get into the topic of hormones and whatever else, but if you think, again, if we relate it back to if you start to skip breakfast and push that back at 7 a.m. or 6:30 every single morning, your body is going to release ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. So your body's going to be like, oh shit, right, we're hungry. Is it actually hungry, or is it just your body telling you you're hungry? Like, do you actually need the food, or is it just like that hormone being released in your system? And like, we all know that you can't, what your hormones are doing, what they're telling you, basically controlling everything that's going on. So, it is an actual thing, but it's just being able to sort of separate the two, is being able to separate the two from each other. The hormone topic again is the second thing that I wanted to bring up. So we've spoken about the quality and the quantity of calories. The next thing I want to talk about is, as important as calories are, the environment to which they enter is also as important. So if you imagine, if we talk about metabolic function and if we talk about hormones, if those things are jacked up, it doesn't matter what you're doing from a calorie perspective. And you'll know this, we've spoken about this before, we deal with it. This is why I have an exhaustive check-in sheet that goes through absolutely everything. This is why I have an exhaustive initial questionnaire, because you can come to me and go, okay, well, I want to lose X amount of body fat and whatever else. I can't go, okay, calorie deficit, because I don't fuck all about you. I don't know how you handle stress, how your sleep is, what your day-to-day routine is, what your life's like. All these things I need to start to gather information on, because if there's something that we need to do first before we get that, then we need to get that out of the way. Because the analogy, again, credit Matt, is he used, if you have all of your engine warning lights, all of your engine management lights on in the car, if it's completely fucked, it doesn't matter how much fuel you're putting in the car, that's not going to fix the problem. So it's about going through each of those lights, looking at your stress, looking at your digestion, looking at your sleep, looking at your ability to recover, your energy levels, your ability to focus, all the things that we go through on a daily basis in the check-in sheet, making sure they're all in line. And then you go, okay, right, do you know what? Now it's time for fat loss phase, or now it's time to take in the calorie deficit.
Yeah, it's a good point that you brought up, because like today in my check-in, or last night when I did my video, I said, listen, some of the key indicators that you listen for are, hey, I'm under a lot of stress right now, right? And I'm under a lot of stress right now. Like, work is really stressful. Just, sheer volume with stuff that I have to deal with, and, busyness and adding new people and all this other stuff. Plus, on top of it, all the things I've taken on. And so, it's been a stressful couple of weeks. And you're like, cool, let's take a look at that. And you look at the whole picture and you say, okay, good. Your HRV and your resting heart rate is pretty much in line with what it was last week, week before. So it doesn't look like it's impacting you too much. Your sleep is in a good spot. So that's a good thing to see. Your macronutrients, as far as where you get from a calorie perspective, is good. Your weight staying stable. So that it doesn't seem to be affecting you. But obviously, if those indicators start to change, we need to start looking at addressing it either with additional sleep or, ways to recover more. And you'd mentioned, obviously, potentially taking out, something, but it's not going to happen. But
but that's the conversation that you get into. Like you're talking about calories in versus calories out. That basically is saying that you need to do more and eat less. Some situations will apply that you need to eat more and do less, and some will be like you need to eat more and do more. So there's so many other ways that you can sort of look at it. But it's being able to look at that biofeedback. Number one, having the data, but being able to look at that biofeedback and understand what these different things mean. Because, okay, right, we track all these things, and I try and explain them as much as possible in the first call. And I know people look at that check-in sheet and they stand and be like, gee, fuck, there's like 70 different rows here that I have to fill in on a daily basis. But this is what gives us that approach, and it means that you can come to me, and I have done this before in your check-in, that I'm like, look, these are off a bit. Are you stressed? And you're like, yeah, actually I am. And I'm like, right, we need to pull back on this, or add food in, or do we need to take a weekend off, or do we need to do a deload week, touchy subject, or do we need to increase calories, or do we need to give a
refeed? You're not allowed to mention the D word, remember?
Yeah, but there's so many different things that we can do that's not just, say for example, you and I were in a fat loss phase, and you had this same week. And I was just a calories in, calories out person. And I was to look at your check-in, you're like, oh, you haven't lost weight this week. That's less calories or more cardio. If your body's not in a state to handle a calorie deficit, to lose fat or lose weight, it doesn't matter how many times I drop your calories or increase your cardio, it's not going to change. So am I going to just continue to, put a square peg in a round hole by going, okay, next week, nothing changed, less calories, more cardio. And the next thing, you've got 200 calories a day and you're doing 5 hours cardio every single day, because calories in versus calories out. So you would expect that at some point that would start to work. So then we need to just take everything back. And as I have done, and as we do, is we look at everything and go, okay, right, you're not sleeping. So potentially you're not sleeping. That's going to increase your leptin and ghrelin hormones. That means you're going to be hungrier. You're not going to feel full. Is your food slightly off? How do you feel? What's your stress like? Stress obviously causes inflammation. Inflammation causes stress. So you get in this fucking rabbit hole of circles, and it's like, right, okay, we need to just strip all this back. And what do we need to deal with first? And, as I've said again before, like, you're dealing with stress right now from a work and a life perspective. Everything that we do from a gym, cardio, everything else perspective is also stress on your body. So you going in a stress state, it's like, if you were on fire, I'm not going to throw fire at you. Do you know what I mean? Like it needs to be right. Okay, like how are we going to manage this slightly differently?
Well, it's interesting how bodies work too, and how you mentioned the hormonal balance of things, right? When we were doing our bulking phase with the power building program, I was up to 4,000 calories, and at that point in time, I was gaining maybe a pound, a week, right? And that was controlled, what we were looking for to go and doing that. But now, I'm at 1,500 less calories than that, and I'm staying about the same, or even in certain cases, obviously gaining. So I'm at 230, 234, 233 right now. And I think at the heaviest I was there in that 4,000 thing, I was at 230. So, I've actually gained some weight as I went into this, but I'm also on TRT from a testosterone perspective. So, even being in a deficit, I'm gaining muscle mass as things are going along because I'm prioritizing muscle building versus, everything else. So it's an interesting balance where, I would have expected myself to lose weight substantially at 2,500 calories. We were down at 2,400 calories, I think, at one point in time. And it's just an interesting.
For one day. That's your you do one non-training day a week, and it's that. Like, come on.
It's 2,200 for non-training days.
But the other, I'd like to point out this.
By the way, actually, 2,200 calories in a non-training day is actually easy for me to do. So that doesn't bother me.
This takes us back to the conversation of the difference, and this is a whole other conversation that we can have at another time. But there's a difference between weight loss and fat loss. So as I said earlier on, like your weight will fluctuate, especially as you mentioned because of TRT. So yes, okay, you are potentially putting on muscle because your body's in a position that it can handle it. Your body's also in a position that on a hormonal level, it can process food. It's the nutrients, it can absorb and uptake them a lot better than, if you hadn't been on TRT. So that's what happened from a muscle building perspective. From a weight perspective, that ticks that box. But from a fat loss perspective, that fat oxidization that I was talking about earlier on, that's what's happening. So we are getting heavier, we are building muscle, but we're also getting leaner at the same time. I pointed out your obliques in your checking you did, and like there are. And
no, that was great. Yeah,
mention it.
No, I was like, as you're doing, I'm like, I'm like looking, I'm like, but no, it's interesting because, and for those that aren't familiar with TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, we have a whole podcast on that, and there's a lot of great research around that. And I'm not advocating go on TRT. It's very much specific on you as an individual. Yeah, no kidding. Get your free and direct testosterone, check your estradiol or estrogen, and I'd also recommend thyroid from a blood work perspective to see where you're at. But as you get older, your testosterone levels drop, which reduces your ability to put on muscle mass, sex drive, energy levels, brain clarity, you name it. Testosterone's like the miracle hormone for men, especially as we age. So I had extremely low testosterone to the point of what's called hypogonadism. Doctor recommended that I go on testosterone, and so I ride normal levels of testosterone as I go along. But when you look at what's actually been accomplished, what I'm looking for is, and this is why the whole scale discussion that we always have too is the scale is deceiving, right? Your scale is one data element of many data points that you should be looking at overall, right? So if your scale is
literally 73 things in the check-in sheet. I have it here in front of me. There's 73 rows in this.
It's crazy.
Sheet. It's a lot.
It takes me 5 minutes to go through. Right? Yeah. So one, your measurements, right? So I have this Remco measurement piece here. So measuring your waist, your hips, your arms, your shoulders, your neck, your quads, your calves, and if you're seeing that you're gaining weight and that your hips and your waist is gaining weight, you're probably adding some body fat, right? Doesn't mean you're not gaining muscle, but you're probably adding some body fat. If your arms are getting bigger, your legs are getting bigger, your shoulders are getting bigger, your chest, and your waist is staying the same or reducing, you're probably losing weight and adding muscle. So, the scale is just a barometer to say, hey, are we in a controlled manner here? Are we gaining 5 pounds a week, which is probably going to mean we're adding a lot of body fat because you can't build muscle that quick at all. Or are we losing 2 pounds a week where we want to be at? Are we losing 3 pounds a week? Or do we need to adjust our calories to, get more to what we want to do from a desired results perspective? But again, going back to Ben's point, it's not just calories in versus calories out. It's also understanding your body and adjusting quarterly to what your objectives and your goals are for your body.
Yeah, absolutely. And a side note to this, I did Louise's check-in earlier on, and she has. We go through different periods of when the scales are pissing her off. So I'm like, look, just don't weigh yourself for a while. She is infinitely in a better mood in her check-ins when she's not weighing herself. So if the scales are fucking you off, literally go up to the bathroom now or wherever you keep them and fuck them out the window, because you do not need to have that data if it's pissing you off. Because I've had it before where clients will literally go, they step in the scale and it puts them in a bad mood for the day. I'm like, it's just one data point in so many. I can literally go, look at all this other shit that's going on. Like, look at your, look at the strength, look at this moving, look at your HRV, look at your rest and heart rate. Everything else is so great, but because they've been so conditioned that the scale is the number, they're like, well, that's up, and I'm pissed off, and I'm going to be in a bad mood for the rest of the day. And I'm like, okay, right, well, I mean, just fuck them out the window then. So yeah, I was tangent about the scale, but yes, I think
that's taken me a long time to get over myself.
Yes,
right?
yes.
It was a year or more before I stopped being concerned about the scale, right? Because again, the scale is, for me being morbidly obese when I was in my worst times. The scale was everything, right? I just see myself creeping up and you losing grip and reality of your body, your control of your health and everything else. And you just keep going up and keep going up and keep going up. And you're like, I'm trying to work out, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. I'm just losing control. And, it's this whole fear thing because, you're now 315, 317 pounds and you have no ability, you're lost, right? And, what's different about what happened then versus what's happening now is I'm 100% in control, right? If I decide, listen, I don't want to be 230, right? I want to be 200. I could do that. Absolutely do that. Hands down. Now, I'm not going to do that because I like growing muscle. But
I was thinking, there's no way you would want to. If I go next week, check in. We need to lose 30 pounds. You'd be like, sorry, we're done here.
No, but I can absolutely do that. It's a controlled. And doing it for the right reasons, right? I'm doing it to get to the type of body type that I want to get to. I want to look like Jack Reacher, that's what I want to look like. That guy is awesome, so, we got to get him on the podcast. He's a nice guy. Like he responds to tweets and everything. That guy's super cool.
Tweet him on, see if they come on.
See if you can get him. That'd be awesome. Like, dude, get Jack Reacher. I would just sit here the entire time. Like, I can't talk. I'm so starstruck.
I think this again comes back to the point of taking the time to understand your own body and yourself. Because you're right. If I decided, okay, I needed to get to 200 pounds because for some fucking reason, whatever, I could do it. I know exactly what I needed to do. I could work it out. I know exactly how my body responds to certain things. But because I've been doing it for the past 8 years or however long it's been, I have that understanding. So you need to sort of take time to understand what works for you, how you can adapt things, what how your body changes over time as well. Because, you stand in front of me right now, the things that we do, if I had have got you to do them 18 months ago, your body wouldn't have responded in the same, probably wouldn't have responded at all. They'd be like, what the fuck is going on here? But, even understanding that your body is in a massively different position now from the amount of muscle mass that you have, from a metabolic function, from, everything that we've spoken about here. And that's again where it comes down to, if you were 230 pounds the last time before we started working together, the stuff that we're doing now wouldn't have worked the same way that it did then because you were in a different metabolic state and, everything else that we have sort of worked on since then. So I think that's sort of a good point to note as well.
Man, I tell you, I watch the Wiihack Health community obviously quite a bit, and it's so inspirational to see folks go through different struggles. Like on the women's side of the house versus the men. Versus being extremely overweight to being medium overweight and catching and trying to be But what's awesome to see is that everybody's understanding that this is a process. It's something where you're going to continuously struggle with. You're going to continuously have to put work and effort into it, but it's a thing that, if you make it as part of your lifestyle, you will be successful at it. And it's been really inspirational to see just the journeys of a lot of these folks and the progress that they've had over short periods of time and medium periods of time and long periods of time. And those that have been doing it for a long time, you look at Yuri and you're like, man, that's incredible. Right. He was obese as well, and to see his journey, I mean, he's in the probably 0.01% of people that have been successful in that type of journey to build a body like that coming from where he was. Right. And so those types of folks are so inspirational to see. And, it's crazy to think, I look back at when I was 317 pounds and I was, the things that you tell yourself then, right. It's like, oh, I know I'm a bit overweight, but I'm big boned. And people will think that too. Like, I remember my friend Dave telling me, I think I said this on a previous podcast, but I remember a friend telling me saying, like, I never really looked at you as like being like super fat or whatever, because I was just used to seeing you as who you were. And then when you dropped it that way, it's like, oh shit, like he was really big, like he was a really big dude. And, it's really cool to see the progress of a lot of folks and really taking it by the horns and trying to understand their bodies. And ultimately, this is not an exclusive club that, only a few people can do, or your genetics are prohibiting you from doing it. This is doable for everybody, right? It's calories in versus calories out with nuances, right? And
calories in versus calories out ish.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess the main reason that I wanted to bring this is because I didn't want people to put the effort in and not get the result and think that there was a problem with them. I mean, in a roundabout way, there is a problem somewhere, but it doesn't mean that we can't work it out on whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? You just need to look at your sleep. You need to look at your energy. You need to look at your digestion. You need to look at your stress. You need to look at your recovery, your environment, how your body processes and handles food. Like if you think about 9 times out of 10 people that I speak to live or have lived for an extended period of time in their life eating processed foods. So there are obviously metabolic consequences to that. And I think that, I talk about this a lot at the start of anybody's journey. Like I'm not going to give you a massive calorie deficit. Sometimes I actually increase calories and people think I've lost the fucking plot, but I definitely think I've lost the plot. But my goal with that is if I start to introduce nutrient dense food and whole foods, you're going to think, well, you are eating more volume of food, but your body can process it and handle. You're going to feel better. And, I don't want to say it's reversing those things, but it's getting you in a better place, or it's optimizing how your metabolism works. And, that accompanied with a well put together training program, you can make a lot of progress to get your body in a position that you go, right, I'm firing on all cylinders here. All my engine management lights are off. It's good to go. Deficit time. Let's get fucking shredded.
That's one thing. Last topic I want to hit on this before we close it out.
Where to buy your multivitamins?
I'm the devil for got it. I'll take it. I've been called much worse, so we're good. The thing that was interesting to me when we were starting this program, and when you started looking at like my macro breakdowns, you first start off with, listen, get your protein intake of this, and I don't care about anything else, right? Because you're just trying to get me into a system that allows me to discuss it and also understand like where my food is at, how I'm getting that food, and then from there kind of improve over time, right? And one of the things that once I started getting down really well my macros on the side of protein, so let's just say I was getting 210 grams of protein or 200 grams of protein, which everybody complains of, like I can't get 100 grams of protein. I'm like, man, I eat 250 grams of protein a day, and it's not a problem. It's like I know it's a lot, but it's like some people are doing 300 grams of protein. I've had 300 plus days.
450. Helmy, 450.
Oh my god, Helmy's a big boy, man. But it's one of those things where you start off small and you figure out what works for you and what doesn't, what type of food you eat, what you like, what you don't, and then supplement as necessary with like protein shakes and things to that effect, right? And what's interesting about where my food intake started going to is you started saying, well, listen, hey, I'm noticing here that you're hitting your protein goals spot on, great. Let's take a look at how you're feeling. So how do you feel during the week? Well, I feel kind of sluggish. I don't feel like I have enough energy. And you're like, okay, let's try cutting down some of the fats and focusing more on carbohydrates, from an energy source perspective. I'm like, okay, I'll try that. And boom, all of a sudden I started having a lot more energy. I started having a lot more, motivation. The workout routines got much more intense, because I had the additional energy to go and do it. And the same thing when we started doing the power building stuff. You're like, listen, we're going to increase your calories substantially because the power building stuff is going to tax the hell out of your body. You're going to need a lot more energy to be able to deal with it. And what was interesting about that is, the whole goal of the power building program was to put on as much damn muscle as possible in that period of time. And, when I was popping 3,500 to 4,000 calories a day, I felt like a god, the amount of energy that I had, the amount of ability to throw weights and wanting to throw more and foaming from the mouth and screaming out loud. I definitely would have got kicked out of Planet Fitness, was at an intensity level that I've never experienced before. Right. So food is one of those things that is such an important thing to knock down as you're going through all of this, but keeping it within the confines of what you're doing and knowing when to adjust and how to adjust yourself in a way that is most optimal for you. Again, Yuri, still does calories, still does carbs. He does about 200 grams of carbs a day, but he also influxes more fat, whereas I'm more on the 250 to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day, less fat on that side. So it's just what works best for you and how to optimize the most amount of energy that you have.
Exactly. And I think that's exactly the point. It needs to be what works best for you, because what works for me might not work for you, might not work for anybody else. You need to work that out for yourself. And it literally just comes down to either someone giving you the guidance like I have done with you, or just trial and error as to like, okay, right, you know, how many grams of carbs can I eat before I start to feel like this, or how many grams of fat, or what if I change this, or what if I manipulate that, like what way do I feel? And it's about actually being in tune with yourself. Either track the data or actually just, you know, instead of just doing it and going through the process of eating food because, you know, that's what you have to do to stay alive, like how can you optimize it? How can you be better in it?
Yep. That's all we're trying to do at the end of the day. Optimization, figuring things out. And that's why you mentioned the thing of, hey, if it's 1% better for us to go and have a multivitamin, I'm going to effing do it because it's 1% better, right? Or if, you know, something gets me 1% better without impacting my body from a longevity perspective, I'm going to go and do it, right? You know, because it's all about optimization and figuring out what works best for you. Like for me, I like doing cardio on a fasted stomach. A lot of people don't. You know, for me, I like, eating a bunch of carbs an hour before I work out. Most people like to do that too. And I also eat a lot of carbs after I get done too, with replenishing glycogen stores. So it's like, you know, these things that you figure out as you're going through how your body works and what's ultimately best for you is ultimately going to be what's best for you to optimize yourself. And again, everybody's different. And it's just a matter of trial and error as you go through things to figure out what's best.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. That was a great podcast, man. Good job on the topic.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Thanks everybody for joining. Thanks everybody who shares at Wiihack Health, #Wiihack Health. I genuinely love seeing you people be on board on it. I appreciate everybody's support within the group. Anybody has any ideas, recommendations for topic, wants anybody on, you know what to do, give us a shout. And everybody remember, take your multivitamins.
Take your multivitamins. Later, everybody.
Catch you.